right, guys, we're back again with another episode of the Fobs Pod. This is Aliyu,
This is Chris.
and we're gonna have a little discussion about the birth rate on talking about the birth rate on a global scale, but also talking about it in context of Canada and how we can because we've noticed a decline in the global birth rate. And we just want to talk about it because obviously this is another threat to civilization, because if there's no kids, there's no future, right? So we're going to talk about that. And first, we're going to tell you guys the data on why we believe that there's a decline in the global on a global scale, but also especially with Canada. So my friend here is going to talk about a little bit about the data. So go ahead, my brother.
Yes, so here I took this information from the Stat Canada website. It says that Canada fertility rate reaches a new record low in 2023. So Canada's rate has been generally declining for over 15 years and reached a new low in 2023 of 1.26 children per woman. So this figure you have to remember for the rest of the video.
Yeah. So yeah, and if you look at the global, if you compare, let's say so basically the global fertility rate, according to a very useful tool that everybody uses, ChatGPT, which has taken over our lives. So according to ChatGPT, the global fertility rate in the 1960s was 5 kids per woman, right? Now today, the global fertility rate is about at 2.3 kids.
That's globally?
Globally, okay, per kid. And Canada is doing even way worse than that, because they're doing one less child than the global average, right? They're at 1.26. So it's a very big issue. And to those that are against immigration, this is another positive, right? This is another immigration positive for Canada, because they gotta get a population. This is a big country. They gotta get a population, and if people here are not willing to have kids, we're gonna bring in those that are willing to have kids. That's just the bottom line. But yeah, so talking about that, we can already see that it's a huge difference between from going from globally, first of all, going from 5 kids per woman to barely 2, basically, per woman. That's a huge. If you notice though, that the year in which it was 5 and steadily declined is also because of the birth control pill, because the birth control pill came out in the 70s, right? So that's why there's a material difference. It's almost like before and after, like the birth control pill, right? So we're going to talk about that, because the birth control pill is very useful to everybody, right? Because when you want to bring a child into this world, you really have to plan for it. You don't have to plan for it like you're planning like a project or anything, but you do have to think about like the foundations of what you need, in terms of before you bring a child into this world, right? Because you owe them that, and you owe society that, right? You don't want to bring into a child into this world and then put that child, the responsibility of that child, onto the government or onto society, right? Because that just creates more criminal behavior, more bad behavior, and that leads to all sorts of
it also problems. Leads to more burden on the society.
Exactly, right? We want children, and we want productive children. We want like children that brings, that are the future of the world, of societies, and stuff like that. So we don't want to kind of this is a really important decision. It's a decision that is also necessary in terms of like the future. People always talk about global warming. Listen, I accept there's probably environmental impacts due to human behavior and activities, right? But what I don't accept is the threat is seen as like such an urgency. It's almost like, we told them, okay, if we don't do this, we don't change course by this time, the world is gonna end for sure. But we have all these threats, like nuclear threats. We have like birth rate threats, because bro, if you really think about it, the boomers, they're probably the population of the boomers, like the people born right after World War III, right? World War III. Yeah, astaghfirullah. We don't want the World War III. We're talking about World War II, right? So the people that were born during and after that time period is like the biggest populated generation, right? Out of all the generations so far, right? What does that mean for us? That means that we will pay for taking care of those generations when they're no longer productive people in society, right? We will have to use distribute resources to them, that extra resources, that instead of focusing on the potential of the new fresh generation in order to bring in the future, we have to worry about taking care of them when they're no longer active, productive members of society, right? And that takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of resources, right? So, and also it becomes problematic because when the society is focused on taking care of the old people too much, there's no investment in the young people, the new generation that's going to take over, right? And stuff like that. So there's a lot of factors that come into play when we're talking about the birth rate that people don't realize in general, right?
Yes. So I believe Ali, you covered what we're gonna talk about in this podcast. Uh, what I also would like to add on what he said is that there's a lot of factors that went into the declining birth rate in Canada and in the world. Um, One of them in Canada is since 1950, like he mentioned, the contraceptive, pill.
Basically, we're talking about revolution, because this is something that completely changed the societal arrangement between a man and a woman, right? Because if we're being honest, right, before the birth control pill, basically women were kind of like a certain lifestyle was almost imposed on them when they chose to have kids, right? Because if they had kids, they basically bore the brunt of the economic effect of that, meaning that they were unable to do other things, right, that are more beneficial to them financially, whether it's pursuing their own personal projects, whether it's like pursuing education, higher education, whether it's pursuing going to the workforce, right? So that allowed men to dominate the workforce, while women were kind of like structurally, not directly like imposed upon, but structurally imposed upon to stay home and take care of the kids, right? Because obviously the kid is more dependent on the woman than the man, right? So by nature, that freed up the men to do whatever they want, be in the workforce, be able to build wealth, while the women depended on the men in terms of financial freedom and stability, right? So yeah.
Yes. So in 1960, the Canada fertility rate began to decline, and it actually happened at the same time where the oral contraceptive pill was introduced in 1960, as he mentioned. And also another factor that caused declining birth rate would be changing values in young people, and I believe those are the two main
Yes.
factors.
Yeah, so like if you do a Google search about why the factors, right? The first thing that they will say is cost of living, right? That's what the first kid, like young generation, and that's a real problem. 100%. I agree with that. That's a real problem. But brother, we're going to be honest here, right? Financial stability is not really like, people don't sit down and look at their finances before they decide to have kids, right? Kids are had based on situational circumstances, right? When you meet the right person, right? When you fall in love, when you have, when you become intimate with a person, and you don't dictate when you meet that person. That person comes into your life at different points of your life, right?
But there are
What?
actually, I understand what you mean,
Yeah.
but there are actually people who care about the their economy, their financial situation
Yes.
before they have children.
Yeah.
But
There is people, but that tends to be more on. I bet you, bro. If you look at the numbers, you will see that the people that care about their financial stability before they had kids are people that are on probably on the more educated side, right? The more, like, we're talking about the average Joe here. We're talking about the average person, right? That walks around every day outside, right? That you see. No, it's true, right?
Yes.
Those people, how many people have kids without being married? How many people have kids with one person and then it goes bad, right? You could even say it's more important to choose the right person to have kids with than to have like the financial flexibility of having kids, right? Because, bro, I found it. I'm a young dad, right? I'm married. I'm a young dad, but I've my experiences, my experience with having a child throughout, like in my relationship, my decision was never ever at one point based on financial flexibility. Otherwise, I would have been, I would have never been able to have a kid or whatever, right? It was always based on the right person, right? For me personally. And I think that's and the reason why I'm here today advocating for that is because I found that me basing that decision on being with the right person to have kids with rather than on a financial number is actually that's actually what allowed me to be able to raise my kid today with the values that I want to instill in him, like with the processes that me and my wife already were on the same page on, right? We don't have a problem. So whatever financial difficulty we've experienced since I had my kid has never become has never been to a point where actually I asked myself, oh, maybe I should have waited a few years when I'm established in terms of career wise before I had a kid. Never. Not to mention the social the government funded social programs that actually in my opinion that are the best in the world in terms of like in terms of the promoting kids, right? Because like incentivizing people to have kids, right? So it's not like you're on your own, you're by yourself or whatever. And when you we're no longer in the 1950s, just like there was a problem then when women were not able to work. Today, when two people get together, two incomes get together, right? So it makes it much more easier and stuff like that, right? Because it's almost like, oh, okay, now before you had to pay rent before you had kids, now you have to pay rent. Before you had to pay for food before you had kids, now you have to pay food, right? Like it's not, and the additional money you get from the government in terms of the child tax benefits, that helps tremendously. Even like you can, even if you really like a maniacal like person in terms of finances and budgeting, you can even make sure that all the expenses related to the kid fits into that pile, that small pile that is given to you by the government every month, in my experience, right? So whenever someone tells me it's because of financial stability, I highly dispute that. Unless you're unemployed, bro, there's no reason for you to, for me, it's about the right person, meeting the right person, finding the right person to raise a kid with that will be a productive member of society that projects your value, like into the future and stuff like that, right? That's my opinion. Obviously, it's an opinion, so I wanna know what my friend Chris thinks about this, because I am a father, so I have a different perspective on it. So he's I don't know. I don't know if you have kids that you haven't claimed, but we never know. So Chris, I don't know you that well, brother. So, but that's beside the point. I want to know your perspective, on whether you have unclaimed or claimed kids or no kids. Let me know what you think.
As a person in their young 20s,
yeah,
my perspective are the following. So I mean, I'm just gonna talk about the factors. I'm gonna continue with the factors that caused the declining birth rate. Uh, One of the factors is, as we mentioned, what did we say again?
So me, I said that the factors of having of the reason why it's the decline. I haven't spoken about that. I spoke about my experience regarding having kids. But in terms of the decline, I said the birth control pill. That was a big factor. I think that's even the major factor. And then there are also other factors regarding like uh, that originate from the fact that the birth control pill arrived, because women were able to go to work more. So for professionally, they had prioritized their professional lives compared to their like having kids. They pushed it down the line,
There
right?
is also something you mentioned earlier as we were talking before this video about the modernity and how we.
Oh yes, yes, brother. Yes, modernity, right? Because now, so basically, if you look at modernity, the difference between modernity and in the past, like in traditional times, the only difference is we have changed in the ways we arrange ourselves societally, right? Meaning that now, before it was like it was more like it was a narrow-minded view of it, in terms of like, okay, the man naturally goes out to hunt, get the food, and the woman stays home and takes care of the kid. Those were the primal, most basic and primal ways of arranging a society, right? That was in the beginning. Now that we've reached into modernity, where we have all this optionality in terms of like allowing, not only freeing the woman from the burden of staying home and taking care of the child, but also all these different ways that the child that we can make the child busy, like, right, going to school, daycare, kindergarten, like all these little things that came along, that pushed us, that allowed us to have more optionality and flexibility in the way we arrange, right? That allowed the woman to go outside the home in terms of pursue
Yes,
her
and
own
one thing
path.
that I just thought about is that in the past, people couldn't just move up the
Up
social
and
ladder like that, like
exactly,
today. Like you see
exactly,
people on YouTube or
exactly.
doing like side hustles
Yeah,
and
yeah.
making it.
No,
But yeah,
yeah, yeah. Like I'm saying, what you said, it was a really good point, right? Being able to move up the social ladder changes everything, right? Because it opens up a lot of pursuits for every member of the family, like in terms of the man and the woman, right? Like I said, when people have their own person at so basically we started civilization started as a community based civilizations, right? And slowly we've become an individualistic based society,
especially in
right?
the Western
Yes,
countries.
exactly. So basically, individuals' objectives and goals surpass, like in priority, than what's good for the general group of people, right? So that caused people to prioritize their own dreams, their own, like what they want to look like, to give them, they basically have more voices in what how their lives look like, more than ever before.
Yes, and the individualism increased part of because the reason behind it, or one of the reason, is the neoliberal policies that
Oh yeah.
came into
Oh
effect
yeah.
in the
Don't
early
get me
days.
started on that one.
But that's
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
another time.
Yeah.
But also, what I wanted to say is that because of that lack of people couldn't really move up the social ladder easily as today, which it's still difficult, but not as difficult as before.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt
No,
you,
go.
but the way that families or people could move up the social ladder was to create children, because if they had a lot of children, maybe they um, I don't know how to say this, but they had more chance of succeeding economically, and also because
Yeah.
of there weren't proper sanitization, and the health wasn't that good. Health
Yeah.
practices wasn't that good. They had to have more children
Yeah.
because
To account for the
some,
deaths.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a cruel way of putting it, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yes.
You know, but like you definitely made a good point. Also, the idea of having more kids at that point, because the structure was community based. That means every kid that went out there and made something, they brought it back to the family,
Yes.
right? So it kind of summed up to become more than enough for for it was a way of kind of making sure the family is wealthy too, in a way, right?
Yeah.
Not only to mention working in farms, working like all that, all those things, right? Now that we don't have that, we have like mass production, like in we have industrial age,
Yeah,
obviously,
and
that came,
urbanization, that
and
people moved into
exactly,
cities
yeah,
and
yes,
left
and
the
yeah,
countryside.
yeah. So it's really like I feel like it's the arc of the human evolution that that is reflected in the ways.
What do you mean by that?
Like that means basically you can see before after every revolution in human history, the way we've organized in societally, it had big impacts on that, right? Because like if you talk about like the world, like the industrial revolution, right? That freed, like that allowed us to mass produce every basic thing, every basic resource that we need, right? Which allowed us to kind of like which allowed us to systemize it, right? When we systemize it, we have less people working in small increments. Like it's almost like we're centralizing it, right, in a way. So that allows to free up to not only have more people less people working on farms, like doing their own thing, to more people being freed from working from farms to go out and work on other things, right? Because before it was the family, how do we get the food, right, together, right? Now, since that was taken care of by a whole different system that allowed the families to kind of focus on other things, right? How to gather wealth, how to bring more wealth, how to live more comfortably. So you can just see the arc of it, like
Yeah.
as we've evolved as a human race.
Yes, now we're gonna talk about the consequences,
Yes.
about the declining fertility rate in Canada specifically.
Yeah.
Whether you believe it's a good thing or not, there is some apparent effects of that, and that's what we're gonna talk about.
Yes, and I'm gonna say something very controversial. I really don't like people that say they don't want kids, bro. I don't want it because first of all, bro, how you here? You got here because someone else sacrificed,
Yes.
their lives for you to be here, But that's beside the point.
Yes.
What we want to talk about is the idea. Like I said, I kind of started touching on it a little bit, right? Because we want to have kids at least above the replacement rate, right? So meaning that for every human being that dies, we need another human being to replace him, right? For every human being that gets old and gets unproductive, we need another human being in the workforce to replace them, right? This has economic consequences in terms of like the GDP, how much we're producing. Like let's talk about. Remember, I saw there was this thing going on in France, right, about the retirement age, right? Like, so basically, people went out in the streets and protested like crazy, started
I
burning,
remember that.
right? Because Macron, like the president of France, he decided to up the retirement age because the country was collapsing under the weight of all the social programs related to old people, right? So literally you can see the French economy almost collapsing because there was so much more programs to take care of the old, because basically there was the older population increased, right? Because more older people, the baby boomers, as I told you, right, they're going out of the workforce slowly and surely, but slowly, right? So that kind of puts a strain in the
Yes,
economy.
and I want to talk about that because it's very important.
Yeah.
Like how retired people can put a strain on the economy.
Yeah.
because of the declining birth rate.
Yeah.
One of the reason, well, the reason is because, or the explanation, from an economic standpoint, is that we need like 2 or 3 people to replace a retiree. Otherwise, there's gonna be it's not gonna be sustainable economically, because we have to think, like, if I enter the workforce, if I'm in the workforce right now, like me, I have to take care of my bills, my expenses, but also I have to pay taxes for things, including a retiree.
Yes.
So we need at least 2 to 3 people. But right now, where Canada is dropping that, it's called
bro.
the worker per retiree ratio, and
Bro,
it's dropping, and it can have some negative consequences to us, people working in the taxpayers, and retiree, because they won't have good benefits.
Yeah, and also economically, what do you want your population to look like, right? You want to have military age young people that are very productive in the economy, so they can innovate and create things, right? Not so they can become PSWs, like, personal support workers. Not so they can work as nurses taking care of people.
I disagree on that.
No. It's true, because because, brother, if there's a war that happens, what do you want? You want military age young people to be there to defend your country.
Yes.
If, like, there's a lot of reasons why you want to free up young people to be productive, to innovate and create. Because whatever, if you're a nurse, right? If let's say you're a personal support worker, right? Whatever that person every day they wake up, they go to work, right? What that time and effort that they invest, with that time and effort that they invest into that person does not equal to a productive or economic boom for the overall for the overall country. So it's almost like they're doing something, they're working hard, but it's not really equaling to a positive thing for the overall economy.
They're still bringing money to the economy.
But above that, because we want to go above that. We want to, like, when we're talking about GDP growth and all that, we want to, more than anything, innovate. We want to come out with new ways of doing things, new businesses, new forms of businesses and stuff like that, I would say. But yeah.
Yes. So for now, we're just gonna take a pause on the effects of the declining birth rate in Canada. We're gonna jump into our opinions on the solution that the government or that we can take. So do you want to start?
Yes, I think the best thing, I think the number one solution, because this is another conversation, but it's related to this, because I think the rise of feminism is another big factor in this conversation.
So I want to hear about
that. Yes, because I think the thing about feminism is it's almost like it's like when there's a backlash to an injustice in society, right? But okay, let's say when we talk about race, right? That's an injustice, all right? Like slavery and all that, whatever. That's an injustice, right? So people rise up against that, right? But they rise up. They make incremental. They make a lot of progress. They make even like progress such as today. I have the same rights in the eyes of the law as a white person. A white person has the same rights as me. An Indian person, a brown person, a yellow person. Everybody has the same rights in the eyes of the law. That was the biggest struggle in the past, right? In terms of race, right? So now you have you that's when once those standards are reached, that's when the revolution goes even further in terms of demands, right? In terms of actions, in terms of like standard, in terms of standard. And that's where they surpass the equality spectrum. They go way beyond equality. They talk about no woman should have a kid because it hinders her life in you know what I mean. Those type of conversation comes, and bro, if you're a girl, you hear that, oh, if I have a kid I won't have a career. If I have if I'm married and have a husband,
Yeah.
it will hinder my
Yes,
individual
and
rights.
it became more
It
potent
became-
because of the rise of social
Yeah.
media, because it's directly
Yes.
it directly attacks, or not attacks, but like the girl will see that immediately.
Yes, and they will, obviously they will think, oh no, like, I want to be able, I don't want to be my financial future to be staked. I don't want to put that gamble into a man who's gonna one day, we're not gonna be on the same page, and he's gonna decide to leave me, or I'm gonna decide to leave, or he's gonna, for whatever reason, the relationship breaks down, and I'm left with nothing, right? So the best thing that we can do, that's why I was coming back to the solution. I took a little route, but I'm coming back to the solution I would propose, right? I think it's time that we start telling women that bearing a child is not a cost to you professionally, right? Which means that it's time that we arrange the labor structure in a way that recognizes that women should be still valued and paid for even when they're going through the process of having a baby, right? That's very important, I think.
Yes, I agree with that. There's definitely a mother. Mothers have penalty.
Yeah,
and,
there's a tax. There's a tax on motherhood.
Yes.
Yes.
And they should definitely, like, we should there should be
More awareness.
because it's really a challenge, and it's not often talked about.
Yeah, it's
And
because, bro, sorry to interrupt you, because I live this, right? If I look at my personal situation, bro, first of all, it takes so much effort and energy to raise a child, right? That's what I learned by having a child, right? But more importantly, it's very, very difficult to raise a child when both the mom and the dad are working. You know what I mean? Because first of all, we don't have time with our child, because in the morning, mom goes to work, dad drops off the baby at daycare and goes to work, right? They come back at home. By the time they come back at home, the baby's tired, the mom is tired, the father's tired. So there's basically no time to do quality spending time or whatever. Everything after that, after work, has to be done based on the outlook of tomorrow. Oh, we have to do this because we have to already get ready for tomorrow, right? If you contrast that with one parent be having the option to stay home with the kid, either way, whether it's the dad or the mom, bro, there's such a difference in terms of like how like the quality of life, the stress and everything, and the time spent with the baby. Like, I've seen it, the times where I've been off work spending more time with my child. I've seen how rewarding it is, how less stressful it is, how much more I've noticed things that I want to make him learn, how much more present I am in him, right? How much more he looks for me, right? Like when I was working full time all day, like every day, I come back home at 6, 7, I don't have time. I see him for an hour and boom, it's time for bedtime for him, right? Now that I spend more time with him, we got to know each other, bro. And through getting to know each other, I can see how much, like, not only how much those moments are very fulfilling, like rewarding, that makes me remember, oh, I'm actually doing this. This is actually one of the best decisions I've made in my life.
Yes. So
Conclusion.
My conclusion to this, as I mentioned, there is this podcast is really important, and this topic is really important because it touches on the first podcast we did, which is immigration, and as if you remember, one of the consequences of immigration is the housing crisis in Canada, and actually in this in the declining birth rate is in part caused by the rising cost of living and lack of affordable housing, and which is one of the few reasons why Canadians are having less children. And actually, it can be this reasons doesn't prevent Canadians of having children, but it's a compounding.
It's a compounding factor. It just adds on, right?
Yeah, it adds on to
Because
the
it's
challenges.
because money challenges and housing challenges are big basic stressors, right? So when people are stressed about that, how can they think about having kids, right?
Yes.
So that's but as for me, man, as a person that has a child that is married, all I can do is encourage my fellow brothers and sisters, around my age to really really get to that, get married, find the person that find the right person, obviously, to have kids with.
Yes.
But aspire to get married, especially young men, because we need young men to get it together, to follow like the right path, to put their lives together, in order to attract their beautiful partner, so they can procreate, because that's what we need, man. I'm telling you, you can never ever experience what you experience as a father and as a husband by just focusing on your career, right? Like, it's the fulfillment and the rewards you get from being a father, that relationship, that unconditional relationship with your child and your wife. You can never get that from getting your dream job, from getting whatever else that you're rewarded with through hard work in your life. So I encourage all my young men, all my young brothers and sisters, get to it, man. We need to save the world. This is literally a civilization ending issue, bro. So that's what we want. We want y'all to have more kids, get busy with it. You feel me? So yeah. That's about it for us today. And I think this was a very interesting conversation.
Yes.
And I look forward to more interesting conversations between myself and my homie Chris. And we encourage you to watch our videos. We're just in the beginning of this. There may be minor hiccups here and there, but I promise you, we are only getting better.
Yes.
The best is to come.